Okay, stop everything that you were doing, stop it right now. I know my beard's getting ridiculous, I know I need a shave, that is irrelevant. Right now, we need to talk about WandaVision.
Lesmiserableone. Ding.
Hello there once again, my friends. My name is Aaron Hastings, and welcome back to the Lesmiserableone channel, a place where we make silly internet videos and things. Now, I'm just gonna go right ahead here and say spoilers, spoiler warning, all of the spoilers, and then I'm gonna jump straight in because, okay, let me take a minute. Breathe, have a nice refreshing beverage. Do it. So there was a little bit of a teaser trailer released for this episode in which we kind of saw that this episode, at least partially, was going to be from the perspective of S.W.O.R.D., the agents outside of Wanda's kind of sitcom reality bubble that are trying to figure out what's going on. It was also revealed by Paul Bettany in an interview that WandaVision kind of takes place in 3 acts. So episode 1 to 3, the kind of sitcom episodes that we've already seen, were kind of the setup to what is, obviously going to happen. And now episodes 4 to 6, which is what we're currently into, is the next act in which everything gets revealed. So this is where we're finally going to find out a lot of the answers to a lot of the theories and things that have been kind of going around on the internet. And there were a lot of theories and questions and things answered in this episode, but also a lot more questions that were kind of brought up. So let's dig into that a little bit. So this episode opens on Monica Rambeau kind of fading back into reality toward the end of the events of Endgame as everyone's kind of blipping back into existence. She's sitting next to what would have been her mother Maria Rambeau's bed, except she unfortunately passed away 3 years ago during the whole blip thing when Monica wouldn't have been there to know anything about it. The first couple of minutes we're kind of witnessing all that chaos of people like literally coming back into existence and how it's like overwhelming everyone and everything. And so this is like a little bit of an exploration of like that, what happens when suddenly 5 years later half of the universe just appears back into existence after they were wiped out and everyone's been grieving for them for 5 years. It then cuts to S.W.O.R.D. headquarters, which we find out was actually built by Maria Rambeau, which I personally think is a really nice touch. There were some complaints about Captain Marvel about how it was kind of racist and whitewashing Monica Rambeau's transition into the woman that she becomes, but I think that this kind of pulls that back a little bit, because Maria built this entire S.W.O.R.D. organization and is now dead, and so she is like the legacy. She built this whole thing that Monica's kind of now like building up to and living up to, which I think that's a really nice touch. She meets with Director Hayward and immediately starts asking about the astronaut training program, implying that like with phase 3, a lot of what's going to be happening moving forward in the MCU is going to take place out in space. There's a lot of space stuff. We've obviously got Guardians of the Galaxy, we've got the Eternals, and the Fantastic Four, possibly Galactus. They then sit and Director Hayward presents her with a mission and Maria's directive protocols that everyone who potentially blips back into existence, assuming that they did, is temporarily restricted to terrestrial missions only. Again, implying that there's gonna be a lot of spacey stuff, perhaps linking to Agent Nick Fury on the spaceship thing with the scroll at the end of Captain Marvel? Question mark. It also just does that little bit extra to kind of reinforce that sort of legacy thing that Maria believed that all these people would come back, particularly, her daughter, like she had faith that she wasn't gone for good. It just feels good, man. So anyway, they've contextualized Monica's mission. She's limited to terrestrial missions only, and she goes out to New Jersey for a missing persons case. Of course, she pulls up outside of the little reality bubble outside of Westview and is introduced to Agent Wu, which is when things really start to get interesting. Wu says that he has someone inside of Westview who's in the witness protection program, but suddenly they just sort of dropped off the radar, and so it was his assumption that they'd just sort of flown the coop. Sort of like what Scott Lang does in Ant-Man when he's got the little ankle monitor and he's like, screw you guys, I'm gonna go save the world. So he's obviously trying to find out where this person's gone, but then he starts contacting relatives, known associates, and people that know this person, and they all seem to not know that he exists. This person just seems to have disappeared from existence entirely. So obviously this is a little bit weird. He comes along to Westview to check it out and meets up with local law enforcement, who then tell him,
"No such place."
You're saying the town of Westview, New Jersey doesn't exist?
That's what I keep telling your G-man here, but he won't listen.
Westview apparently doesn't exist. Except it does, because we can see it. There's a big old sign that says, "Hi, welcome to Westview." So not only has reality completely shifted inside of Wanda's little bubble, but it's also shifted to the point where people outside of the bubble kind of forget that the inside of the bubble exists, like they have the selective amnesia. But then Monica raises the question, how come her and Wu have this awareness of Westview if it doesn't exist? And the people standing outside of it are like, what are you talking about? There's no such town. What, this town behind me doesn't exist. And presumably this is the kind of catalyst for like a whole load of weird multiverse bending stuff. But also it raises the question, Wu points out that according to the sign, Westview's meant to have a population of nearly 4,000 people. But during the sitcom episodes, we only actually see maybe a couple dozen. And bearing in mind that this is literally taking place weeks after everybody just sort of blipped back into existence, would this pocket reality bubble have had an impact upon people blipping back? Like in the same way that Ant-Man was immune to the effects of the snap and stuff because he was in the quantum world, could this little pocket reality bubble have affected anyone that would have been resident at Westview? Also, where are the children? It's been brought up a few times, particularly in episode 2 when they keep repeating, "For the children." There are no children in Westview. If everyone snapped back into existence, where are the children? Where are the 4,000 other people, for example? But also, there are no children at all, apart from Tommy and Billy. We then see Monica get out one of the drones, which ultimately turns out to be the helicopter when it goes inside the bubble, emphasizing this kind of, shift that happens in like it being a totally different reality. And Wu drops a fantastic line that this isn't actually a missing persons case, it's a missing town case. Ergo, Westview doesn't exist, but it does. So it's kind of a weird shifted reality where Wanda's just sort of taken over this town, and who even knows anymore? Monica ultimately ends up getting pulled into this bubble reality after Wu saying that he's not allowed in, so for some reason Monica is. And then we cut to Kat Dennings! Woo! Darcy Lewis is sitting in kind of like a lorry type thing with a few other scientists on their way to this literal massive response camp that apparently sort of set up in the last 24 hours after Monica was dragged into the bubble, which is kind of insane that they kind of have the facilities and the resources and the ability to set all of that up in 24 hours. Like, that's mad. But anyway, Darcy starts setting up all of her equipment and doing like some initial tests on this reality bubble, and she detects a lot of CMBR, or cosmic background radiation, which as Director Hayward literally says is
relic radiation dating back to the Big Bang.
Which is an interesting one to me, because, cosmic radiation, I would assume would refer to, space, like spacey objects, things that came from space. Perhaps there could be evidence of it, being seen from things that are from space but have been here for a long time. But I wouldn't instinctively associate Wanda's powers with kind of cosmic spatial radiation. Which then raises the question of where is this radiation coming from? Like, could that lead into the theory that Wanda made a deal with Mephisto and it's kind of his powerful energy that's kind of causing that radiation, that he's sort of lent her this power, or that it's sort of like a team effort kind of thing? I don't really know, maybe I'm overthinking that, but I wouldn't associate Wanda's powers personally with cosmic radiation. So then Darcy starts to pick up on some longer wavelengths, or like a different frequency kind of breaking through all this cosmic radiation, and she tries to pick it up and notices it's like a TV broadcast frequency, which does confirm the theory that this is like a show being broadcast, and that's how SWORD pick up on it and pick up on the fact that Wanda's in there. We then immediately start to confirm another theory in which one of the SWORD agents, Agent Franklin, is wearing like a hazmat rain suit type thing and goes into a sewer, which of course once kind of breaking through the reality field becomes the beekeeper. And it's just like all at once, it's kind of answering or confirming a lot of theories that people had and questions that people had, and also raising new ones. It then cuts to Director Hayward inside of this kind of room, and they're looking through all the different scans and feeds and types of information that they have, and there's a lot of hexagons, which leads to a brilliant moment with Wu when he's writing on the whiteboard, and he literally writes, "What we don't know, why hexagonal shapes, or why hexagons?" Which is actually so meta, it's ridiculous, because people have been questioning for weeks, why hexagons? And he's literally gone and written it on the board. We also get some absolute gems in this section, like this moment.
So you're saying the universe created a sitcom starring 2 Avengers?
It's a working theory.
And also,
So what, deep cover? Monica has to play along?
With whom? Or else what?
these are literally all of the questions that people have been asking. It's like they kind of knew that people were going to theorize on these things and ask these questions, and so they literally started asking the questions in the show itself as kind of like, ahaha, we knew you were going to ask that. It's mad. It's so, like, this episode is so meta, it's ridiculous. Also, Darcy implies that there are kind of other episodes of the sitcom. Are there more episodes? Like, is there things that we're not seeing? Because we've obviously only seen the 3 episodes in the 3 different decades that have kind of come out so far. But could there be other episodes? Like, obviously all of these events are taking place in quite a concise time frame, but like, is Wanda broadcasting all of the time? Are the events that we've seen the only events that have happened, or is there kind of other stuff that's happened that we haven't seen? Are there breaks between episodes? Like, does it only air, like, you know, once a day or once every few hours or whatever? In which case, what is happening inside Westview when the show isn't broadcasting? Could the potential existence of other sitcom episodes mean that we'll see more episodes in the future as a potential spin-off? Or are there not actually any other episodes, and, you know, what we see is what there is, what we get, what's happening? It's all very interesting, and then of course an agent brings over the photo of the helicopter that's landed inside of the reality, and obviously it's warped to fit, you know, with the kind of theme. Someone mentions it potentially being like a production design type thing, like, you know, fitting in with this whole the world's a sitcom kind of vibe. But they also mentioned that they didn't colorize the helicopter, which means that it was colorized inside the world, potentially because it's not meant to be there, and so the kind of the colors are popping and standing out because it's an outside item. It's not part of this script, part of this reality of this world that's been designed. The only exception to this is the light on the Stark toaster, which is not explained. So maybe that one will come up at some point, who knows. We then get confirmation that Wu was the voice on the radio, which people kind of assumed anyway, and we physically see the sword agent in the hazmat suit morph into the beekeeper as he kind of passes through the reality filter, but we also see the kind of impacts that the bubble has on the outside world. Just like with Monica being ejected and being in her 70s clothes back on the outside, the rope that's connected to the agent as he's crawling through the sewers as it passes the filter turns into like a skipping rope. So then when the sword agents up top try to pull him out, they're like, sorry? Why is it a skipping rope? What? But then, as well as getting confirmation that Darcy was the person at the end of episode 1 watching the episode on the TV, we also learn that the glitches that were happening, like with the beekeeper and with Vision in episode 3, those aren't broadcast. The show that Sword are watching does not include these glitches, which means the point where things were rewound was in fact Wanda doing it. It was Wanda rewinding and changing the course of action, changing the script. But from Sword's perspective in the broadcast, all of that was cut out. It kind of jumped from Wanda being like, who are you? Get out of here, to just, oh, sitting happily on the sofa with Vision at the end, which means all of that kind of section, that all just happened in the bubble but didn't happen in the broadcast. But also in that case, what happened to Agent Franklin? Because she was like, ooh, reverse card, sent him away, rewind, bye-bye. Where did he go? Where did the beekeeper go? Like, because Monica was physically ejected and there was an alert like, ooh, perimeter breach, and she flew out and then everyone zoomed in on her. Where did the beekeeper go? She rewound him. Is he still stuck in the sewers underneath the town? Like, what's going on? We then kind of zoom in on the ending of episode 3 again, but like what actually happened, where she's like, no, you don't belong here. You're an outsider. You're a trespasser. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave now, Mom. And just, boom, powers, sends her out, flying out this bubble. And you really see, like, her cracking. Like, no. And it does lend credence to the theory that Wanda potentially is the villain, either in this series or in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, or both. But again, like I said in the episode 3 reaction, all of this is really coming from a place of trauma. Like, if Wanda is a villain, I don't think she's the villain, because there's obviously so many theories about so many other villains as well. If Wanda is a villain, at least in part, it's only because of everything that's happened to her. Like, when Vision comes in and there's that temporary thing where she literally sees his dead face, that is full on PTSD, trauma, war flashbacks. Like, oh, that's my dead husband being dead on the floor with Thanos killing him twice, just the dead, that he's dead. And then she kind of composes, she collects herself, she's like, okay, well now I'm back in the room. And then she literally says, I have everything under control. This is our home now, we belong here, this is our world, I have everything under control. And so now that we've kind of seen both sides, we've seen the sitcom and then we've seen the kind of events that Sword leading up to, you know, where we got up to, I'm really excited to see what happens next. Like, honestly, I don't even want to theorize or anything. Like, we're starting to see answers, we're starting to kind of see it all unfolding. Like, I'm along for the journey. Like I said in the last video that I made, I'm just really happy to be part of it and to actually be actively engaging on a week-to-week basis. It's not something that I've been able to do before, and obviously with this being the first Disney Plus series, it's not something that's been able to happen before, at least in the context of the Marvel Universe. So I'm real excited to be along for the journey. I cannot wait to see what happens next. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, and of course, don't forget to like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more videos on WandaVision and also other things. I'm going to be doing a lot more other stuff, like I did some Doctor Who openings, some more like personal talkie vlogs. I'm going to be talking about books and films and probably Drag Race at some point, realistically. We know it's going to happen. But anyway, if you're enjoying the reactions and you want to see what I think about next week's episode, you might as well hit that subscribe button down below. I hope you're having a really good day. Again, let me know what you thought in comments. I will see you really soon. Really soon indeed. Take care. Goodbye. Hello, editing Aaron here. Whilst I was putting this video together, I actually noticed 5 more really quick details that I want to touch on just before I wrap this up. Number 1, when Jimmy's showing Monica his license, he does it in the form of a card trick, like he was practicing in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I really enjoyed that. 2, when Jimmy's trying to get through to Wanda on the radio, there's another little skip in the broadcast footage when Dottie's hand starts bleeding because the glass explodes and all of that's just skipped out, which is the first instance of her kind of editing and censoring the broadcast, which we also see at the very end of that episode when Monica's ejected from the bubble. Number 3, at the very end, as Wanda and Vision are going to sit down on the sofa and the broadcast resumes, the aspect ratio changes again back into sitcom format, and it almost makes me question if Wanda's literally controlling the entire thing, like she's changing and shaping and editing this TV show as she goes. Number 4, during the credits sequence we see Wanda and Vision's kind of OG costumes, which is kind of, you know, setting things up. And number 5, the song that plays during the credits is Voodoo Child by Jimi Hendrix, which contains the lyrics, "If I don't meet you no more in this world, then I'll meet you on the next one." Referencing the fact that Vision's dead, perhaps the Vision that's here is a Vision from a different universe, setting up all the multiverse stuff. But yeah, I just really quickly wanted to point out those 5 little details that I noticed. Hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe!